go off at 3 minutes, and we'd ask that you kindly wrap your remarks up once you hear that buzzer, and if it continues on, I will politely ask you to wrap them up. Our first citizen to address the commission is Mr. Stephen Curry. Mr. Curry, please come forward to the podium right over here.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Curry. I live out in Woodlawn, and this is about the Charter Commission. On January 11, 2018, Montgomery County issued a check for $25,000 to a vendor, Red Ivory Strategies, on behalf of the Charter Commission. The purpose was to pay for telephone surveys for the Charter Commission. This vendor, Red Ivory, has no internet web page with phone numbers, addresses, testimonials, capabilities, or anything. How was this vendor chosen? State law requires a competitive and sealed bid process for expenditures over $10,000, and this was a Montgomery County check. I have a copy of it. At the public Charter Commission meeting on April 22nd, Katie Gamble, the chairperson, said they did do 3 competitive bids. We need to see those. I submitted public record requests for those bids and the contract with Red Ivory Strategies. I wanted to know why they paid this vendor in full prior to any work being done. How many surveys are supposed to be done? What are the questions on those surveys? How do we know they aren't going to use these surveys to openly advocate for passage of the charter and use them to pit city people against county people, both of which they discussed in a Charter Commission meeting on November 17th, 2017? What are the vendor's duties and responsibilities? What are the penalties for failure to perform by the vendor? We need to know that, especially in light of the fact they've already paid him in full. When I received the response for my request, I was flabbergasted. The Charter Commission is not required to follow state law on bidding and contracting, and they have refused to disclose how they are spending our tax money. We, the taxpayers, paid for this, but we don't know what they are paying for. One of the major reasons I have questions about this is because Red Ivory Strategies is the same vendor that the Committee for a United Community Political Action Committee used for their phone surveys, and they are pushing hard to pass consolidation. And they paid the vendor $7,000 for their phone surveys. So the Charter Commission has spent county tax money with absolutely no transparency or accountability. What are they hiding? These two things are just more in a series of questionable actions, like using these phone surveys to pit city people against county people, that this Charter Commission has done. The Charter Commission is sanctioned by state law, and the county and the city wrote ordinances to create and implement it. So why shouldn't they be required to follow state law when they are spending our money? This is unelected citizens spending our tax money with no oversight. What could possibly go wrong with that? Since the Charter Commission doesn't want to follow state law, why should we even let them write a charter in the first place? I call for the County Commission to do a full investigation into this problem. I am petitioning you, the County Commission, to do 2 things. 1, contact our state legislature to close up this gaping loophole in accountability and transparency. And 2, contact the Charter Commission and demand that they open up their records on this spending and show you and us the 3 competitive bids that Katie Gamble said they did and the full written contract with Red Ivory Strategies. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthew Kerr.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Kerr. I live at 3545 Aurora Drive here in Clarksville. I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer in the United States Army, and I wanted to come tonight to talk with you about libraries. We come to the county in 2009 based on our assignment here at Fort Campbell. And I think we had a passing knowledge in about the 12 places that my wife and I had lived prior to being here, that there were numerous branches of various libraries across the country, and it was something that perhaps we took for granted. And I'm noticing now, as my wife and daughter are sitting here in the audience, that they've supported me through my Army career, and I feel like it's my responsibility as a father to support my daughter, especially in her education. And imagine my dismay to think about that it takes more than 45 minutes round trip without traffic to go to and from a library. And I have very fond memories of growing up in northeastern Oklahoma and getting on my bike and being at the branch library in a little over 5 minutes. And I think that's a love-hate relationship, obviously. I spent a lot of time in that library researching and doing schoolwork, but certainly I want those opportunities for my daughter and for our family. And I guess I would just want to point out that given that we have no family or financial or business ties to the county or the city, we have the fortunate opportunity to have discussions in our family as well as with other retired military members about where we want to make our home in the future. And I guess I would just suggest that our daughter, our neighbors' daughters, my brothers and sisters in arms, children, have the opportunity to go to a public library in and around their neighborhood or in a region. And I guess all I would also ask you all to think about is how many of you all are carrying a smartphone either in your briefcase or your trouser pocket or your purse this evening. I would almost venture a guess that a number of years ago, there would be no discussion that you would need a smartphone because they didn't exist. But now as you sit, I bet there are not many of you who could go without a smartphone. And I guess, what does that have to do with a library? I guess I would tell you sort of one of my favorite movies, Field of Dreams. The character says, if you build it, they will come. So I would ask that you simply build or allocate the monies for an additional library here in Clarksville, Montgomery County, and so that when I sit around the dinner table with my family and my friends, that we can have discussions about not needing to move out of Montgomery County or Clarksville so that our families have an ideal situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Celia Oliver. Did I get your first name right? Kinda. Somebody said I should have just said Miss Oliver.
Hello, I'm Celia Oliver. I live at 627 Cornwall Road. I'm a student at Rossview Middle School, but before this year, I went to Northeast Elementary on the north side of town. Because of that, I feel like I can offer a valuable viewpoint on why we should have another library branch in northern Clarksville. Libraries have resources for learning and community building, and everyone should be able to go. When I lived on the north side of Clarksville, we only went to the library in the summer, and even then, rarely. Since we moved closer downtown, we go way more often, like on weekends and a couple times after school. I have used the library's resources in many ways. This includes checking out drawing and art books to improve my drawing skills and learning how to fold origami. There have been multiple times I went to the library to do research for school projects and look up information on interesting topics. I have enjoyed going to the many events the library holds as well. I went to a coding class with my Girl Scout troop, which will increase my engineering skills. This is important because I want to become a biomedical engineer. I once went to the Harry Potter book night event, and I have also gone to the library to hang out with my friends. Currently, I'm writing a book, and reading fantasy books like Aragon from the library helps me to be a better writer. In the future, I will use the library's resources to research colleges and go to and investigate career options. One of the best advantages about going to the library is that I don't have to beg my parents to buy books. I read a lot of books, and most of the books I read are in a series, so it's helpful not to have to buy every one. These are all opportunities I want for my friends. The library helps build a community too. We need a library so kids and adults can have more chances to meet people with similar interests and check out their own books without having to wait until summer like I had to. My friends on the north side of Clarksville like to read just as much as me, and they should be able to check out books easily, attend library events, and use resources without a long drive. Having a library helps kids understand learning is important, so they can do better in school and read more to build their imagination. Thank you for listening. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Caitlin Haley. Did I get your first name right? All right. Good evening.
Can y'all hear me okay? Is this good? Okay. I'm Caitlin Haley, and I'm just here to talk about my support also of a public library branch in North Clarksville. Full disclosure, I do work for the State Library and Archives, but I'm speaking to you now as a private citizen and someone who lives and works here in Clarksville. I grew up here, and I moved away at 18 to go to college. And after I finished graduate school, I came back and got a job here, and so I've been here for about a year and a half. And it's an interesting thing, I think, to rediscover or view your hometown in a different light than you did as a kid and a teenager growing up, for sure. And something I've noticed is that now at 25, I'm seeing things in a different light, and I'm realizing things that are more important to me in a community than I did as someone growing up here. Certainly, also as a young professional, I think a lot about what's going to make me stay here and what is going to make me want to put roots down here, why would I want to remain here in my career, and things of that nature. There's a lot of things that I value in a community, and it kind of runs the gamut everywhere from early literacy and getting help to those students and parents that need the help the most, to having community hubs and places where people can gather and participate in lifelong learning, to even this concept of equity of access for all, right? So having a notion of no matter what your background is and where you came from or how much money you make, that there are public resources for you in a public setting. And I think those are all extremely important. As someone who lives here and works here, I want to see my county and my city reflect those values and to achieve those same goals. I do work with public libraries on a daily basis, so I see firsthand the impact they make on communities. And economically, socially, culturally, there really aren't a lot of areas that public libraries don't touch. And they're a rare and unique institution, right? So one place that people have honored and revered for just so many years. And we live in pretty unique times where sometimes it feels like we can't even step out of the house, and it just feels divisive and it feels hostile. And libraries are that one place that say, come as you are, you're welcome here, this library is for you and you belong here. So, the opportunity, the access, and quite frankly, the power that public libraries give, to me, it just cannot be overstated, and particularly in an area like North Clarksville, which is so massive. I think it can benefit everyone that lives in the most rural parts like Woodlawn all the way to the more populated areas like Fort Campbell. There are a lot of people that live on that side of town, and I think to invest in that community and those people is to show a significant amount of support and loyalty to them, and I think it's just a huge step in the right direction to continue to develop and grow a more stagnant area of Clarksville. I do want to leave you with this one thought, and it's an absolutely true fact, and it blew my mind when I heard this, a couple months ago, and it is the fact that there are more public libraries in America than there are McDonald's. So just sit on that for a second. I think that's crazy, and it blew my mind, and I thought it wasn't right when I first heard it. And I did check, there are 7 McDonald's in Clarksville, so we have some catching up to do for sure. And I think it's a worthwhile effort to do, and I hope you agree. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right, Commissioners, we don't have any zoning resolutions, so we'll jump right into our other resolutions. Resolution 1851, resolution to request unclaimed balance of accounts remitted to the State Treasurer under the Unclaimed Property Act. Any discussion on 1851? The rest of y'all want to leave too? We'll stop for a second if y'all do. Any questions on 1851? (1852) resolution accepting the public improvements program and capital budget 2018-2019 through 2022-23. This is compiled by the Clarksville Montgomery County Regional Planning Commission. Any questions on the capital improvements program? Resolution 1853, resolution to accept Office of Domestic Preparedness State Homeland Security Grant Program 34101-14918 and to appropriate funds. Any questions on 1853? 1854 is a resolution authorizing a loan pursuant to a loan agreement between Montgomery County, Tennessee and the Public Building Authority of the City of Clarksville, Tennessee, in the principal amount not to exceed $4,565,900, authorizing the execution and delivery of such loan agreement and other documents relating to said loan, approving the issuance of a bond by such public building authority, providing for the application of the proceeds of said loan and payment of such indebtedness, consenting to the assignment of the county's obligation under such loan agreement and certain matters, and without objection. 1855 is the initial resolution authorizing the incurrence of indebtedness by Montgomery County, Tennessee of not to exceed $4,565,900 by the execution with the Public Building Authority of the City of Clarksville, Tennessee of a loan agreement to provide funding for certain public works projects and to fund the incidental and necessary expenses related thereto. Mr. Graham, I know you're here. Do you want to give the commission a real quick summary of what these two resolutions are?
Thank you, Mary. Good evening, everybody. If you recall, when I came in and took over Pike County, one of the initial intents and initial requirements that we had to do was to get airspace and allow us to drive some revenue through Pike County. The state worked with us tremendously to do that. And we've got that airspace, and we're about to start generating some revenue from that airspace. That's the good news. On the backside of that, though, there's a lot of compliance work that is out of date that I walked into and took hold of when I came into leadership over there. There's some cap and close on our Class 1 and our Class 3, as well as the construction of our Phase 2 of the expansion that we're trying to prepare to take that waste in. Rather than to piggyback on a county bond this year, I've chosen to approach this through TMBF with the support of my board. TMBF allows me to establish it as a draw bond or a draw loan, so I can stay variable within the limits of that. And it also makes those funds available for me 1 July, which is critical because the state compliance effort upon Pike County right now is to get some of this stuff done as quickly as possible. So I've got about 180 days to accomplish 3 major tasks. And for me to wait for the release of bond funding through the county would put me at risk with the state and their compliance. So I've chosen to address that through TMBF.
Any questions of Mr. Graham? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, Resolution 856 is a resolution to accept the donation from the Clarksville Rotary Clubs to help construct Phase 2 at Civitan Park. That's an additional, Jerry, $25,500. You have anything you want to add to that?
Yes, and probably come next Monday, there'll be an amendment to this. They've notified me today they'll be adding another $1,000 to this, which will be $26,500.
Awesome. Thank you. Any questions on 1856? All right, on to our reports. Airport, Commissioner Jason Hodges.
Not much to report. They don't really have anything new. Their financials are in good standing. Fuel and rentals are both up for the year. So good news. And that's about it.
All right. Thank you, sir. School Liaison, Commissioner Genus.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and County Commissioners. Of course, they've been very busy also with their budget. They actually had a special called meeting on May the 1st, Tuesday. Again, they talked an awful lot on the budget, went through their budget and reassessed what their spending priorities and the money's coming in. Several Point of Pride awards that was given out to the students throughout Montgomery County, and just real good meetings. And as I said, their priority right now was working on budgets.
All right, thank you, sir. Under county mayor appointments, there's actually two, with one being deferred. The Adult Oriented Establishment Board, Pat Vaden, Ed Groves, Ellen Thomas, Bryce Sanders, and James Eldon Thomas all are appointed to serve another 4-year term expiring May of 2022. The Senior Citizens Board, Howard Rex Williams Sr., appointed to fill the unexpired term of Cynthia Johnson, term to expire April of 2020. And the Personnel Advisory Committee, I'm going to postpone that until September. Commissioner Joe Creek and Commissioner Jason Hodges will continue to serve. And I just feel like if we appoint somebody now with the potential turnover on the commission, this will just give us another committee to put some folks on. So just trying to be fair and balanced with it. So if you'll look at your reports, I'm sure we'll have a couple that'll be added next week. Any old business? All right, under our announcements, there'll be a budget roundtable discussion on Monday, May 21st at 4 p.m. in the large conference room. That's Monday, May the 21st. You're invited to attend the Service Award Luncheon for Montgomery County employees on Tuesday, May 29th at 11:30 at the Civic Hall. You should have received an invitation with a number to call along with an email address to respond if you plan to attend. So if you would, please RSVP if you plan to attend. And the public hearing on the budget will be held at 5 p.m. prior to the informal commission meeting on June 4 in the large conference room. Any other announcements? All right, we're adjourned. Thank y'all.